You may have heard that a game called Cyberpunk 2077 releases this week. Made by the folks at CD Projekt Red of the Witcher series fame, Cyberpunk is one of the most hotly anticipated and hyped up games I can remember in recent years. The review embargo ended today, and the game has largely been lauded by critics and game journalists. It currently sits at a 91 out of 100 on both Metacritic and OpenCritic. Most of the big sites have praised the game. Games Radar gave it a 5 out of 5, calling it, quote, a paragon of open world gaming, offering the kind of freedom to explore and define your character that provides a new pinnacle for the genre. IGN and Game Informer each gave it a 9 out of 10. Tom Marks at IGN referred to its, quote, beautiful and dazzlingly dense cityscape and its, quote, staggering amount of choice, concluding that, quote, Cyberpunk 2077's impressively flexible design makes it a truly remarkable RPG. Andrew Reiner at Game Informer called it, quote, fascinating and loaded with depth. This is lofty praise from some of the biggest names in the game review space. But not every big site and critic was quite as high on the game. PC Gamer gave the game a 78 out of 100, saying that it has, quote, some nice characters and stories nested in an astounding open world, but was, quote, undercut by jarring bugs at every turn. GameSpot's Callie Plaguey gave the game a 7 out of 10, highlighting the bugs, but also noting that for all of its good, Cyberpunk's world is full of superfluous things to do that don't feel especially meaningful. She also pointed out its inconsistent portrayal of different cultures and its world seeming, quote, superficial. Now, to be clear, these reviews are not negative. For GameSpot, a game scored with a 7 is good. And for PC Gamer, a score in the 70s refers to, quote, a good game that's definitely worth playing. We like it, end quote. In other words, these reviews are saying that Cyberpunk 2077 is good and worth playing. Still, the online gaming community has unleashed a string of vitriol at reviewers who dared to score the game as less than amazing. I read through several of these reviews, and some others I haven't mentioned. For the most part, I think they're thoughtful and well-reasoned. None of them heap endless praise upon the game, although of course, some sections of some reviews sound that way when taken out of context. And none of them uncritically bash the game without reason. Most highlight the good, and to be clear, there's a lot of it across all of the reviews I've seen so far, and the bad. Some of those bad elements, such as the wide array of technical bugs and glitches, are essentially universal across reviews and comments from others who have played the game. In other words, the review cycle for Cyberpunk 2077, although undoubtedly affected by insane levels of hype and anticipation, is by and large functioning as it should. Critics are picking up on similar things, but are affected by them in different ways. This is the nature of criticism. When someone is tasked with giving their opinion and critique of a piece of media, a piece of art, it's not objective. It's entirely subjective. Yes, we can objectively say that there are bugs and glitches, but whether those bugs and glitches harm the overall experience of engaging with the game is purely subjective. For some, they may have a slight negative effect that is almost entirely overcome by the joys of the game. For others, they may sap a big chunk of joy from the experience. That's the subjective nature of criticism, in this case in the video game space. The notion of objective criticism is simply a flawed and non-existent one. Yes, there are outlets that try to give objective evaluations of certain aspects of video games. Digital Foundry is a fantastic source for technical breakdowns. Pixel counts, frame rate tests, analyses of lighting and shading and all sorts of other technical components of games. But those are not reviews, they're not criticism. And that's not a knock on Digital Foundry. Those folks are great and I watch virtually every video they produce. But I'm pretty sure they'd agree that what they do is fundamentally different than what the reviewers for IGN, GameSpot, PC Gamer, or any other outlet do. Criticism is not supposed to cater to its audience insofar as critics should not write what they think their readers want to see and hear. Critics should, well, criticize. This may include some objective description of what the game is about, what genre it's in, or what elements it pulls from other games, what they did in the game, how long it took to beat, and so forth. But more importantly, they must try to capture in words as best they can the meaning of their experience. What did it make them feel? What emotions were stirred? How did the various elements of the game interact to generate meaning in their experience? Trying to capture such experiential meaning is difficult, and it's why, while everyone can be a gamer, not everyone can be a games critic. Game reviews aren't meant to make you feel good about your purchase, or to validate your own beliefs, or to support your chosen side in a silly war over consoles or game preferences. They may, certainly, if your approaches and preferences to games are similar to those of the reviewer, but they may also challenge your beliefs, encourage you to be introspective and reflect upon your own preferences. Finding reviews or reviewers who share your tastes and have similar perspectives on games is great. You should seek out those reviews and enjoy them. But if you're willing to keep an open mind, you may find even more benefit in engaging with reviews and reviewers with whom you disagree. Maybe they'll highlight something that you've never considered, and maybe that thing broadens your own perspective. Or, after critically engaging with it, maybe you still disagree, in which case you've strengthened your own argument and maybe developed a stronger defense of it. Regardless, by engaging with reviews that challenge you, you can learn and grow. For example, I have a different taste in games than Tom Marks at IGN. He loves a lot of games that don't do much for me. So it's possible that his praise of Cyberpunk stems from elements that won't work for me. That's fine. Regardless of our different preferences, I always try to listen to Tom's perspectives on games when he's on a podcast or writes a review, because I pick up on different things and am exposed to games that may otherwise escape my view entirely. Similarly, Callie Plaguey from GameSpot is one of my favorite reviewers. I've agreed with her about some arguments made in her past game reviews. I've disagreed with others, but I always find her points well thought out and well reasoned. Whether I ultimately agree with them or not, I always learn something from reading her work. And as an aside, it doesn't hurt that she's one of the best writers in the mainstream game space that I've seen. So with all of that said, here are 3 parting thoughts. First, reviewers put themselves out there for you, me, and the rest of the world. My sense is that, for the most part, these reviewers are not automatically averse to criticism. They're willing to discuss their reviews with others who both agree and disagree. You can and should engage with them. Tell them when they've done great work and you agree with them. Ask them questions or offer alternative perspectives when you disagree. However, under no circumstances should you ever resort to name-calling, threats, or any form of harassment. They're doing their job, which is not to appease you and make you happy, but to share their experiences with games. If you want to disagree or challenge their arguments, that's perfectly fine, but you should always do so thoughtfully and respectfully, rather than resorting to cheap insults, or worse, making them actually feel threatened or unsafe. Second, if you want to engage with reviewers to ask questions or to request further explanation of their ideas, fair enough. But if you're going to try to push back and suggest that anything they said is wrong, you should probably wait until you've actually played the game. When you tell a reviewer that their experience is wrong, which is a silly argument anyway, or you try to suggest that you know more than them, but you haven't played the game because it's not out yet, you just look silly. Third, remember, these are games and they should be fun. Yes, I think it's good for us to engage in critical dialogue about the things we love, but at the end of the day, they're video games. If you love a game, or in the case of Cyberpunk, want to love a game, a reviewer giving it a 2 won't change your experience with it. Similarly, if you hate a game, or you want to hate a game, a reviewer giving it a 10 doesn't mean you can't criticize it. Look, I'm excited for Cyberpunk. The Witcher is one of my favorite series. The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I'll be getting the game on Thursday, and I can't wait to jump in. My excitement for the game isn't changed because Games Radar gave it a perfect score, while PC Gamer gave it the academic equivalent of a C+. At the end of the day, we all have our own tastes, and that's all right. Just, don't be a jerk. Play what you enjoy, love the things you love, and be good to one another. So that's it from me for now. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, maybe give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. Regardless, let me know what you think in the comments below, and please consider supporting the channel by subscribing and sharing this video. Until next time.